Okay, I'm going to explain this as best I possibly can. I wasn't able to actually video this process. The reason is you have to actually stand the wings up on their edge to pour the epoxy in and move around a lot. And I tried a couple of times with one wing, and it just was not staying in frame. So I apologize for that. So this is the end result of where I am. What I did is simple. I filled the void of both spars up to where they're going to meet with some styrofoam peanuts. And then I stood the wing on its edge and mixed up some epoxy. I used 30-minute epoxy with, I believe, micro balloons, which I'm sure you guys have used before. I used some micro balloons in this to lighten it up, and it needs to be able to pour. And if you mix epoxy doesn't really pour. And if you don't have some kind of filler, then you're not going to be able to really fill the void. And that's what you need to do to make sure that the spar, when you're done with this process, becomes one. So we're not just gluing them together, we are basically making them one piece. Okay. Once you do that, everything is going to ooze out a little bit. So have your rags and whatnot ready. What I did is I put some plastic obviously down on the table so that wouldn't get on my table and on my plans. Clamped everything together, put it directly over the plans, and I used obviously a framing or a square on the front part of the wingtip, and the leading edge and the trailing edge, straight over the plans. Okay, and just to make sure that there was no deflection there. Once I was happy with that, then made sure the clamps were nice and snug, and I let that set for about 15 minutes. After it set for about 15 minutes, and originally I had these on two separate boards over the plans, I wiped off, took one of these off at a time and wiped off any excess epoxy while I could get to it while it was still tacky. And then put it back on one at a time. And then I decided, since I had this long board, that I would slide the two together. And the reason for that is because I wasn't sure, 100% sure, that the other board I had on this side was exactly the same size. I was 90% sure, but not 100% sure. After I did that, I found out later it was. So, but I slid the two together so I could make sure that these guys are going to be exactly the same dihedral from one wingtip to the other. My measurements from this point to the T6 rib at least state that it's a 10-degree dihedral, so we should be pretty good. Obviously, had to weight everything down. Use some cardboard or something so you're not going to damage your wing. But anyhow, I'm gonna let it dry. And we should be good to go for the next project. I will let this dry overnight though. I'm not going to touch it. And we should be onward and upward.